If you have any difficulty in understanding the content of the session and wish to go over it, we will endeavor to have it up on the Edmonton Arts Council's YouTube channel by the end of this week. I'd like to now introduce your two speakers for this evening. We are very lucky to be joined by Derek Stevenson and Janis Richards. Derek Stevenson is the strategic team lead for ATB Financial's branch for the arts and culture. Derek has been working in the arts and cultural industries in Alberta for over 10 years and has worked in leadership roles, educational capacities, and as a mentor for other leaders in the arts and cultural industries across our province. Derek's expertise lies in the not-for-profit arts industries, particularly financial literacy, economics, and governance. Janis Richards is the CEO of a full-service accounting business, JRich Business Services. The company provides tax troubleshooting, bookkeeping, tax seminars, and consulting services. All the staff at JRich have many years of accounting and tax experience. This is coupled with the background that Janis has as a business tax auditor with the CRA for 33 years, as a shareholder and manager of a family lumber business, and as a previous owner-manager of an entertainment company. Welcome, Derek and Janis. Without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Derek Stevenson to start the actual wisdom. Derek.
Thanks, David, and thanks, other David, for the introductions. Really appreciate it. And thank you, Janis, for doing this presentation with me today. So just gonna make sure I can share my screen here. Oh, sorry, 1 second. Oh. I apologize for some tech issues. I think I'm going now. So, like I said before, my name is Derek Stevenson. I'm the strategic lead here at the Branch for Arts and Culture. The Branch for Arts and Culture is a concept that started about 2 years ago. It actually began in Edmonton, and the Edmonton branch is located in the lobby of the CKUA building. Unfortunately, we've been closed in that space since the beginning of COVID. When it reopens, we'd love to share that space with you again. It's not your typical bank. It's more of kind of a coffee shop feel, which we're quite proud of having. I work down here in Calgary at our Stephen Avenue branch, which is also quite unique and has a sort of a special gallery space. So just for those of you who don't know what the Branch for Arts and Culture is, it's an arts sector. It's a bank focused on arts sector businesses, whether that's nonprofits and charities, individual artists and arts administrators, creative entrepreneurs, and those in the film and screen industry. So really is sort of a 360 way of working with different clients in the arts industry in Alberta. So I always start my presentations out with this lovely disclaimer that tells everyone that I'm not an accountant or a lawyer. I'm lucky today to have Janis with us, who is an accountant, to help with this presentation, but always good to consult with an accountant when you're going through your taxes, especially in these sort of tricky times. So just wanted to put that up in this presentation as well. So today I'm going to go over sort of 4 topics. I'm going to go over some COVID relief programs like David outlined in the What the Fund presentation concept. Janis might go into some of them in a little more detail than I will, but I'm going to outline a little bit of the basics on that. And then I'm going to talk about some sort of budgeting skills you can use in this time when you're maybe struggling with bringing in the same amount of income as you may have in the past. We're going to talk briefly on credit scores, and then I have sort of some getting creative ideas, which is just some things I've logged that other arts organizations and artists have been doing during COVID to sort of help them get through these times, looking at ways they can monetize their business and the ways in which they are reaching their audiences and their communities. Oh. Sorry, lots of tech difficulties here. Okay, so like many of you, I'm keeping my ears to the television all of the time to hear the updates and news on the COVID relief programs. Oftentimes I'm hearing them for the first time, just like you are when we hear a new announcement from Trudeau. There's been different programs announced. Obviously, CERB is the main one that I think Janis is going to go into a lot of detail on, which is the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. There are some other programs that exist, like the Canada Emergency Student Benefit. That one is specifically designed for students. And the other one is the main benefit program that's for individuals who have been out of work during COVID. And there's different eligibility elements to each of those that you need to be conscious of. The other one for business, and this is what a lot of the nonprofits have been doing that have been coming to us, are the CEBA loan account, which is a $40,000 interest-free until 2022 loan account with a possible forgiveness element to it, and that's called CEBA, and that's one that you directly go to your bank and your financial institution for to ensure that you're eligible for it. The next one is the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy, which a lot of artists and arts admin may have been benefiting from if they're connected with an NPO, a charity, or a business. So this is a wage subsidy that a business can apply for to cover up to 75% of someone's wage to a certain dollar figure, which is about $847. To be eligible for that, the business has to show a drop in revenue of around 15%. The student benefit program is for the CESB, is for a 4-week period, and then you would reapply for it. One important thing about the student benefit to recognize is that you do need to prove that you've been looking for work, including the government job bank website, which tracks logins to that program. Just like the CERB benefit, the CESB program allows you to earn $1,000 before tax. I think someone might be in the background chatting here.
Maybe I'll just jump in here for a minute. If there's a Paul on the line, maybe Paul, you might be able to mute your computer, or if you're on a phone, maybe just move to a quieter room if that's possible.
Oh, okay, perfect, awesome. So where was I? Okay, so both the CERB and the Canada Emergency Student Benefit Program, you can earn $1,000 while still receiving the benefit. I think Janis has some details around what that $1,000 is and how you can earn it, but that's before tax. There are some implications on that when it comes to grants and honorariums and royalties. So if you receive royalties for music that you've earned or art that you've created, if it was before you're receiving the benefit, then it doesn't count towards that $1,000 that you've earned. If it's post, then it could be included as income that you earn on that. So those are some of the main programs. There is the Canada Emergency Commercial Rent Assistance Program, which also is a business-related program. But I wanted to point out some arts agencies that are doing lots of COVID relief programs. Obviously, David mentioned that EAC does have some programs going on, which are fantastic. The Edmonton Foundation, Community Foundation as well, has been giving to COVID relief. The Rosé Foundation has been doing some really great programs, funding direct initiatives for artists for online programming. Calgary Arts Development, Alberta Music Spotlight Fund was announced. And then there's some other ones with Canada Council, National Arts Centre, Canadian Heritage, and Alberta Foundation for the Arts. So those are sort of I put all of those there, but there's more in detail on this link. And I found the Rosé Foundation link is like really great and really goes into detail on all sorts of relief programs on there. And it's the best one that I've seen for pretty much any question you have in relation to grants, in relation to individual relief and business relief for COVID. So I really, if there's one link that I want you to take down, it's that Rosé Foundation link. So the next part that I really want to point out is, this is just the advice I give to anyone who's called me during COVID who's been worried about their financials. And it's sort of these 4 different things. So the first one is to track your losses. So this might be very important when you're applying for different relief programs. and potentially when you file your taxes in 2020. So if you had any gigs lined up, if you had any contracts that were canceled, just make sure you collect any of that paperwork and you have that on record, just so we can actually put a dollar value on actually that you lost these opportunities and you lost these gigs. It's important to kind of keep all that information for you. The second one is I always would go to review your earned revenue from 2018 and 2019 to kind of be a comparison to what you would have earned in the last 2 years than you're earning this year. And you can really understand how COVID has impacted you. The next one I put down is plan. So there, as artists, we're all kind of creative individuals, and we're looking for different ways we can be creative and look forward into our next projects. And I've told a lot of people that now might be a time to sort of look for projects that may help you in the long term that aren't connected with, say, performing live, whether that's writing or recording, marketing, developing your website, some sort of education that you need to grow, some sort of management that you might need to do. Now is really a time to kind of reshift, refocus, learn, educate yourself, and find these other creative outlets. Now, at the end of the presentation, I'll talk about some of the ones I've seen that are really interesting, but just something to be conscious of. And the fourth one is reach out. So some businesses, now that we're in phase 2, are beginning to start reopening. And many are looking at creative ways to reach out to their audiences. And you may be surprised who might be willing to collaborate. So it wouldn't be a bad time to start reaching out to your contacts to say, hey, I'm available, I have this project, maybe we can work together on something. I've seen some really interesting collaborations. I know ATB is still connected with the Calgary Folk Fest on their virtually live series, and that's been really successful. And we've seen a few different collaborations throughout the province that have been really cool to see. I included a link here called ilostmygig.ca, which is tracking all of the gigs that artists have lost throughout COVID. It's a good resource and a nice little survey you can fill out to contribute the loss and impact that you may have had. So on here, I've also just listed some common tax deductions that you might want to be tracking during COVID as well. This list isn't comprehensive, and I'm going to lean on once again that I'm not an accountant, but I do always suggest some of these things are important to always track when you're looking at your finances. So any organization dues or membership dues, rehearsal spaces, rental or repairs of your equipment, cell phones, computers, laptops, any kilometers and travel that you do, any education that you're doing connected with your craft, whether that's classes, lessons, apprenticeships. I know we're not really traveling, but if you've traveled within the province, any airfare, parking, taxi, train, lodging, meals, promotional expenses, communications, if you had to invest in some sort of tech and tools to help you be an artist right now, whether that's a Zoom contract or a new landline or increased internet, those are important things to kind of continue and keep track of. All right, now I'm going to talk a little bit about some tools in budgeting. So what is a budget? So a lot of people think it's really simple, but it's a spending, saving, and investing plan to help you get from where you are now to where you want to go. So to actually build a budget, you need to know 5 different things. So you need to know how much do you actually earn? What are your fixed expenses, those ones that are the same every single month? What are your variable expenses? Those are those ones that change month to month. How much do you actually save and how much do you invest? Now, the number one thing I always hear from artists and people in a creative sector is kind of these 3 words. I hear them all the time. I'm not a math person. I'm bad with money. I'm not good at that stuff. And I think it's just scary. I think the first place to look if you want to improve this is to kind of take an honest look at how much do you spend, where do you spend, and how much do you earn. Sometimes I equate this to like shame, like you're kind of afraid to look at it and afraid of like what your financial situation actually is. It's almost like stepping on the weigh scale when you haven't stepped on it in a long time. You're kind of afraid to see what that number is. I think sometimes there's that same fear with financials. But if you aren't afraid to actually dig in and figure out what your situation is, it can be really difficult and more difficult down the line to get yourself out of it. So my artistic analogy on this is, so if you think about budgeting like rehearsing for a show or for a gig, you'd never go to a gig without practicing your set list. And it's the same thing with spending money. Why would you spend money that you don't know if you have it? So you really need to understand your budget, which is your set list or your script, before you go spending it, which is performing or recording. And from there, you can start to begin to ask yourself these tough questions. So do you have financial security? And two, I think a lot of us have recognized this now. If you lost your job today, you lost all your gigs, how long could you go? The relief programs have stepped in and have helped some people to some extent, but if those programs didn't exist, how long could you have survived without getting those gigs? When you get paid, does it service you or does it service your debts? And when you retire, will you have savings? Are you relying on your employer or the government or some family? These are just some big, tough questions that sometimes you need to ask if you're going to kind of set these goals and ensure your financial security. So when you set your goals, you need to figure out where you are today, where you want to go, and how you're going to get there. So some people find it really helpful to write these goals out, estimate the amount that you need to save, research the costs, and set targets. And your financial goals are going to be different. Like they might be short-term, like a vacation or a car or some furniture or paying down some student loans or some debt, versus long-term, which might be buying a house or starting a family or retiring someday. So just recognizing that if you can set those out and plan for them, it's easier for your financial future down the road. I'm going to share this with David, but we do have this really nice kind of online budget for your personal finances on the ATB site that you can use. And it just breaks it up into different categories to help you understand how much you're truly spending. So on the left is obviously on your income that you're bringing in, and on the right is your expenses categorized in different sections. So whether that's home, health, lifestyle, kids, tech, transport. This is just one. I mean, there's tons of budgeting programs online you can access. This is ATB's, and some banks online actually will do a lot of this work for you and integrate it into your online banking. I know ATB's does, and you can kind of track how you spend each month, which is really nice. But there's other programs out there like Mint, and I'm sure some of the other financial institutions do something similar to this. Okay, the other tools and tips. So the first one I put on here sometimes is this cash diet. So a cash diet is kind of strange in these times because we don't deal with a lot of cash, but this is when you're actually withdrawing out money and you're putting it in envelopes to help you budget. So if you create a budget for your month, you can actually take it out in physical cash, put it in envelopes and spend out of each one. And you can kind of get a sense of, oh, wow, I spent a lot out of my restaurant and entertainment budget this month, and I didn't spend much out of this. Obviously, we're in COVID. We don't want to be handling cash right now, but something to be conscious of if you're a really visual person, and it kind of helps you realize how much you're spending. Kind of the envelope cash method has been really useful for people to kind of learn that concept and really understand where their money's going. I think that's one of the negative sides of having credit cards and debit cards now. It's so easy to just spend on something and not really understand what it's actually costing you and how much those things cost you down the line, because it's just a quick tap away and you're buying something new, versus cash when you're physically handing something and you don't have it anymore. And so sometimes that cash diet can be really useful for people. But my favorite budgeting tool is the 50-30-20 rule, which is where you spend 50% of your income on your necessities. This is rent, mortgage, utilities, taxes, groceries. You do 20% to savings, which includes paying off debt, any emergency funds, investments, or retirements, and 30% goes to your shopping, entertainment, any of the wants, those kind of extra things. Not everyone is in a position where they can do this all of the time. So maybe you start at a 50-10-40, or maybe you start at a 60-10, as long as you're getting in a habit of beginning this process, and as your income changes over time, you can adjust that. I mean, I'd rather someone save 1% of their paycheck than 0. So it's a starting place, but the general rule is this 50-20-30. Some people like the 50-25-25. However you want to do it, I think it's just important to realize that about 50% of your income should go to necessities, about 20 to your savings, and 30 for that entertainment and extra. The last one is debt repayment. So if you have multiple debts, multiple different types of loans, and some of them have much higher interest rates than the other, the best way to save money is actually to pay the highest interest debt first, and then the lowest interest rate last. So oftentimes credit cards can be the highest interest of any of the debts that you may have, and things like student loans are typically the lowest ones. There's two kind of different methods for this. You can, but the way to save the most amount of money is through paying those highest interest debts first. All right, so this is just sort of a visual of saving wants and needs of that 50-20-30 rule. So 30% being wants, 20 savings, 50 needs. Okay, I just want to quickly talk about credit scores, because I don't think everyone knows what credit scores are. So a credit score, or a FICO score, is a 3-digit number designed to represent how likely you are to pay a bill on time. And so there's different models on how they're scored, but this is kind of the general rule in terms of numbers. So excellent is 750 plus, good is 700 to 750, fair is 650 to 699, and under 650 is poor. Now, what's really difficult in a creative setting is a lot of the time banks will look at this credit score as your ability to repay, and that's kind of the main factor. Well, sometimes it's more difficult for artists and creatives to maintain a good credit score, because you may work a lot all summer during festival season, and then you don't get as many gigs maybe in the fall, so it's harder to bring in income then. And it's not like you're getting the same paycheck every 2 weeks, and you're working different gigs and doing all sorts of different things all of the time, right? So there might be months that it's harder for you to pay your credit card down, but at the end of the year, you might have pretty good income. So sometimes that affects your credit score. So just some rules and tips that I like to tell people if they want to improve their credit score, which can help them work with banks and financial institutions better. We're happy at the Branch for Arts and Culture to talk to anyone, regardless of their credit score, to see what we can do to help. But here's a few tips. So you can get your credit score checked once a year through an agency like Equifax for free. So if you know your score, you'll recognize that you may need to improve it. The best thing to do is pay your bills on time and pay as much as you can on them. So this is where automatic payments are really helpful when you're setting up your online banking. 3, never exceed your limit. As soon as you exceed your limit, that will hit your credit score. 4, the store credit cards can really affect your credit score and aren't necessarily helpful in boosting it down the line. 5, make your payments and beware of closing accounts. Don't close unused credit cards, which sounds like a strange thing, but it can be a really good thing to show your history of your credit if you don't actually close a credit card and you kind of keep it unused. And the 7th one is don't apply for too much credit at once. So if you're shopping around for a new mortgage or a new line of credit, and you're going around to every single bank and they're all checking your credit score at once, they'll know, and that'll kind of affect your score. So these are just some tips on how to improve your score to keep aware of. It's a good thing to realize, especially if down the line you want to work with a financial institution on a line of credit or a mortgage. Okay, this last bit is just sort of some things I've seen in the public on people getting creative and arts organizations getting creative that I wanted to share. I'm sure a lot of you are very well informed in the industry, but I wanted to share what I've seen. So a few weeks ago, the Rosé Foundation did a webinar called How to Monetize Online Content. And there was different speakers on there, and I thought it was really interesting where festivals and charities like Calgary Folk Fest had began hiring artists for online content using a program like Side Door Access, it's called. This is a software developed by the musician Dan Mangan. I think he's a Canadian musician, and they've kind of shifted the use of this program. It was kind of the Airbnb of like live gigs in different venues across Canada, and they've kind of shifted it to be this online portal for showcasing performances. A few other artists have began using tools like Patreon and Twitch to stream or develop content for members where they actually pay to access artist content. So that has been really cool to see. There were some cabaret performers that were doing things like that in Calgary, which is really neat. And then I just listed some organizations that I've seen do some interesting stuff. So I've mentioned the Folk Festival. The Calgary Queer Arts Society Film Festival went totally online, and they found a platform that kind of gave people access to a portal for their films, which was really neat, and they could only access it for 24 hours. So you kind of had that virtually but still live way to watch that. WordFest has been doing some sort of author related content and presentation content that's been really cool. And then the Citadel's been doing some really cool things as well. There's a lot of different organizations that have been doing things, but it's really neat to see the creativity that's come out. I've seen, this is just sort of some news articles that I've seen that are just like really interesting. The Ironwood in Calgary has created like a glass bubble for performers to actually sing in. There's a hotel chain where you can book a hotel to watch a live concert in. We've seen here the Winsphere in Edmonton Symphony begin streaming some online content, but obviously bringing up things like they can't make the math work and kind of reopening their venue. I mean, it's difficult in phase 2. You have a 2,000 seat venue. You're only allowed, say, 100 people in there. It costs quite a lot to clean a space like that and maintain a space like that. So how do you utilize those venues? You're seeing Workshop West mentioned in that same article there about arts groups in Edmonton, how they're doing a show and intend it to be performed regardless of the using the COVID restrictions to develop the show, which sounded interesting. I can't wait to hear more about that project. Some musicians doing curbside content or concerts. New West Theater down in Lethbridge, where I used to work, is doing a drive-in radio plays at a parking lot, which is kind of cool as well. So people are getting creative. I think that's kind of the only way we're going to get through this, is to kind of work with our artists and get creative in these times. I know it's difficult and challenging right now. We've never seen anything like this in our lifetimes. So it's inspiring in many ways to see the great work that's being done. Well, I don't think that I have all of the answers, but happy to continue to work with artists and the arts industry on solving these problems. But that's all I have for you. I want to pass it over to Janis Richards to take it from here, if I could.
Thanks very much, Derek. That was wonderful. There's just going to be a brief glitch as we switch over to Janis. All right, Janis, you should now have the ability to use the screen as you see fit.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Derek. That was very good. We're just figuring out. So that's what they're saying. Okay. Should we take the chat off for now? Or can we remove it? I just got it off. Okay. Okay. Ready to go? Okay. I just want to thank the Edmonton Arts Council, David Cheoros and David van Belle, and all the other staff there that work towards this, for inviting me to do this, because I've learned a lot here myself. It's new information is coming out daily, and so it's rapidly changing. So what we tell you today may not always be the case tomorrow. I highly recommend going to the CRA site and look at the CERB Q&A. They've done a pretty good job. If anybody's into editing, there's a lot of grammatical errors.
Yes.
I don't know who did that. I guess I shouldn't down CRA, but they put out this program really, really fast. Having worked for the government for 35 years, I have never seen a program put together this fast. Usually it would take about 2 years for something like this to go through all the different checks and balances. So they've done a wonderful job. So now they're straightening things out and giving us a bit more information. So just hang on a sec. Is there a way we can see ourselves too, or no? Or just the screen? So I just wanted to let you know I have my assistant Megan with me. She's helped write this, and she's the one that's pushing a lot of buttons here because this is my first time with this. So I guess let's get started. We'll start with what is the Canada Emergency Response Benefit? The idea behind this whole thing was to set up, it's a temporary income, and people need to remember that right now. It's still temporary income for people who stopped working due to COVID. And this next line, the reason we type this way is because this is what you're going to see on CRA's site or other sites you go and Google about what is it, or eligibility. We have to kind of write what they had so you can and then we're going to try and explain it to you because sometimes you don't like the way they wrote it. Just went here. These glasses are going to close up. So it's good for individuals who are eligible for employment insurance or sickness benefits, but they have exhausted them. So this is where once you're done, like all of a sudden, I'm out of my EI, you will then be able to qualify for CERB. We're not sure all the time if it's paid through EI, if you were on EI, or if it's paid through CRA. You'll have to go and look on their sites and find out. I think it makes a difference if it's exhausted while they're on CERB, right? I mean, not while they're on CERB, while they're on, like during the CERB period. So,
Right.
I think that's the difference. So if it's exhausted before the CERB period, you would apply for CERB,
CERB,
right? Okay.
Yes.
And then it provides you $500 a week for a maximum of 24 weeks. This is really important later on when we start talking about it. And remember, this benefit is taxable. With EI, they take tax off its source. The CERB, they're not. So you're going to have to save a little bit or be prepared that next year you might owe a little bit and you might not. It all depends how much money you made or you didn't make during the year. You'll have to excuse me. Sometimes I had some serious dental work down and it's not finished. So trying to pronounce things properly. The benefit is available from March 15th, 2020 to October 3rd. And for some people, they might have to apply retroactively. They didn't quite get on the bandwagon right away. You have to apply for retroactive payments up to December 2nd, 2020. So you got a lot of time. People should be aware of it. I think most people probably are, but just in case, right? And here's the thing, if you are not eligible for EI, apply through the CRA site for the CERB. This is really, really important. And then if you are eligible for EI, so you got laid off and you have a record of employment, you apply through EI. Don't do both. And a lot of people have done both. So those people who got $4,000 a month instead of $2,000 are going, oh, wow, look how much money I got. But they have to pay it back. And don't forget at the very beginning that the systems weren't really talking to each other. And so it's a little bit more difficult. So it's really important. If you've gotten too much, you're going to have to repay it. And we'll talk later on about how to repay it. And I think while we're talking, you can send in questions through the chat that David van Belle is monitoring, right? And we'll do our best to check it. Maybe, there you got it. Okay, awesome. And we'll try and answer at the time so we don't go too far into this PowerPoint and you've got a question at the very beginning. If you've got a question, guess what? Somebody else has probably got the same question, so go ahead and stop us. So there's a lot of eligibility all of a sudden. When you first went to apply, there wasn't too many factors. Now it seems they've got a lot. So you have to make sure you qualify under all of them. So first of all, if you quit your job voluntarily, you cannot get CERB and you can't get EI. So if all of a sudden you go, oh my goodness, I want to stay home because I'm afraid of getting sick or something like that, you are not eligible for CERB and you're not eligible for EI. So very important to keep in mind. You have to reside in Canada and at least be 15 years old. That's a nice, easy one. Some of the other eligibility isn't. You have stopped working because you were in quarantine or sick due to COVID, or you're taking care of others who are in quarantine or sick. You're taking care of children or other dependents because their care facility is closed. Your work hours have been reduced or you've lost your job because of COVID. And don't forget, when they first put that, they didn't have the $1,000 rule that you could make $1,000. Now we're going to explain that later, that you are eligible to make at least $1,000. You have been paid regular EI for at least 1 week during 2020, and you've used up your entitlement. So now you're eligible to apply for CERB. So don't mind me, I'm reading off my sheets here because I can't see the whole screen there.
I'm sorry.
That's okay, that's just the way it works, right?
Yeah.
Eligibility number 2, because we've got lots more. You have to have earned at least $5,000 in the last 12 months from the commencement of when you're applying for CERB. So that 12 months prior to that, you would have had to have had at least $5,000 in income. So employment income or self-employed income, or you report at least $5,000 on your 2019 return. That's the best way. Most of people who are self-employed have made a gross at least $5,000. Being an accountant, most of my clients have made at least that. Some of them have made more. But mind you, that doesn't always mean after expenses they've made money. So that's just a gross. So you have to have it from employment or self-employed income, that's $5,000. It could be a provincial benefit related to maternity or parental leave. And it could be what's called non-eligible dividends. What are those? Non-eligible dividends just means you got dividends from a small company, a Canadian-controlled private corporation, and you'll just look on the T5 slip if you actually get dividends, and you go, oh yeah, it says non-eligible, eligible. You'll know right there. So it's not really a big thing to know. A lot of people who get non-eligible dividends are shareholders of a corporation that they're the sole owner of, the sole shareholder. And you have to, if you're not a citizen or a permanent resident, you can receive CERB if you reside in Canada, have a valid social insurance number, and meet the eligibility requirements. I think really what they've done here is helping people that got stuck here on work visas or travel visas or student visas. So that's part of that there. And if you've exhausted, we've repeated this for a long time. If you've exhausted your EI, you can apply for CERB. Now guess what? There's eligibility 3 coming up here. This is quite a bit different when it first started. You cannot receive employment insurance benefits and the Canada emergency response benefit for the same period. I keep stressing that because I hear this all the time. People are getting it from both. They are going to be in such a mess because this is taxable. Both the CERB that's paid out through EI and the CERB that's paid out through CRA. And that's confusing. So we like to just say paid up for the EI program. Okay. So if you became eligible for EI prior to March 15th, you will be processed under the pre-existing EI rules. But here's the thing. If prior to October 3rd, your EI runs out, you will then be put onto CERB. So that, I know a person who said that the other day, their EI just ran out the other day. So now they've been automatically put on CERB. So be aware of that. And if you became eligible for EI or sickness benefits March 15th or afterwards, it goes to the EI system, but they'll pay you CERB first, so you're not using up your EI insurable weeks. You can use them up after. You're getting, it's a good benefit there. When you're looking at the whole picture, none of this is super good, but
yeah.
Okay, eligibility periods. Now this gets a little bit, this is definitely something the government loves to do in something like this. It's a 4-week period, and you receive $2,000 payment for that 4 weeks, but it is broken down to $500 per week. So if you go back to work, that $2,000, you may not get $2,000 for 4 weeks. You might get $1,000, or you might get $500, all depending when you went back, because it's a per week benefit. And you must apply for each eligibility period separately. And if you're on the EI, they're going to get you to do report cards every 2 weeks. So you've got to do the report cards every 2 weeks. They pay $1,000 every 2 weeks. CRA says apply every 4 weeks. And here's your eligibility periods that started back in March, and they go to the end of September. But look at that. There's 7 eligibility periods, but you can only apply for a maximum of 6. So the maximum you can get is $12,000. That's just typical of the government to do it 7, but you can only apply for 6. I hope there's something on the computer program that makes people stop. I'm sure they go, okay, you've gotten 6 periods, but they're going to say, oh, but there's 7, but you only get 6 of the 7. So maybe it's depending on when you started too. Yeah, it's late started that extra month, I guess. So here's another thing. Let's say the first period's March 15th to April 11th. Let's say you were not required to leave your job till March 30th. You'll get 2 weeks of the CERB, not for the whole 4 weeks. Another thing that's important to know that you can apply till April 6th. So if you're looking at these dates, April 6th was the first time to apply, so you would have gotten the 2,000 for March 15th to April 11th. Then boom, right away you get to apply again, you get another $2,000. But the system, I find, is really friendly, user-friendly on CRA.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is.
it's very user-friendly. So when you go in there, say, which one are you applying for, and when did you stop working, and how much money did you make last year? So it's pretty good that way.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have any questions at this point? We need to have a drink of water. So anybody wants a question, please send it now. or is it all straightforward? I don't know.
Yeah, no, there's no questions.
Okay, now here's the thing. If you forget all this, which I'm sure there's so much to remember, just as I said before, go on the CRA site. It's awesome for their Q&A. You'll find all this information there, but not as well written.
No.
Unless they change it.
Yes.
Okay, what is this income they're talking about, this 5,000, okay? You have to have earned a minimum of 5,000 within 12 months, the preceding 12 months to when you apply, or from last year on your tax return. You had employment income or self-employed income of $5,000. It doesn't have to be earned in Canada. So if you got money from the States or you got money from European money or something like that, if it qualifies as taxable income in Canada, it will qualify for the 5,000. But you need to read. We got some questions. Okay.
I would like to know, can you apply for it for 1 month, then stop and get back on it afterwards? Yes.
Yeah. So it all depends if all of a sudden you apply for a month and then you've got a job and then then they close down again, you can reapply for the next period of time. Yes.
For every period you are eligible for.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, you can. Okay. And we'll see that other one here. Yes.
I don't recall the reporting of how much you made in the past month. Can this be done retroactively? I'm not
sure of that question.
Me neither. I'm not quite understanding that.
Tracy, Carol, maybe you can speak up if you want and unmute yourself and ask that question if you'd prefer.
Yeah. Sure. I just don't recall when I applied for CERB that there was the question of how much you made last month, because it wasn't in the first one, I don't think,
No.
because we weren't allowed to make any. Anyway, I just don't recall that. I know that's the case with EI, right? You have to report every 2 weeks.
Yes. With CERB, they actually don't ask you how much, like what your income was or how much you made. They only ask you like if you have made that and if you have made $1,000 or under, but it doesn't actually ask what you made.
Gotcha.
So
it's nothing specific.
Right.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Possibly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's a very good question, Tracy. And for Frederick, those are both very good, because like I said, if it's on your guys' mind, it's on other people's minds too. So we really appreciate that. So here's the thing, is that $5,000 may include maternity and parental benefits, and we've kind of said that before. But here's the other things that that 5,000 includes. It includes tips if you're working as a waitress part-time, but you have to have declared them as income or going to.
Someone's asking if it's gross or net self-employed.
Oh, yes, we're going to get to that.
We are getting there.
It's going to be net, and we'll explain how that works. That's a big question, and it took us a long time, and it's due to Derek. Thank you, Derek, and your brother who's a CA. He could actually verify it. We've been looking to verify it, and we couldn't find the answer, so Derek did help us with that. Thanks. So honoraria, so let's say you get $100 from the Edmonton Arts Council for an honorarium, then that is included in the 5,000. There's your non-eligible dividends again. I know a lot of people just, what is it? Don't worry. If you don't get them, you don't have to worry. You'll always get a T5 slip from a company. Royalties paid to artists are included in the $5,000. So let's say last year you got a whole bunch of royalties from Sound Exchange in the States, they qualify for income. Well, as long as you report it.
Yeah.
Some people forget to give me those slips. And then net, here you go, net self-employed income. And so it'll be your gross minus your expenses. Now, artists are going to have a very hard time with a lot of other people keeping track of their expenses. You are almost going to have to calculate what was your income net every week if you're getting in some self-employed income. So make sure you do that, because let's say you got $1,000 even, and you add up all your expenses, and you've got to keep those receipts. You can't just go off of credit cards. You've got to have the receipts. And your expenses were $1,200. Well, guess what? You didn't make $1,000 in that period. But you're going to have to prove that to CRA, because they're going to ask for bank statements, but then they're also going to ask for receipts. And a lot of my clients who are in the arts, and I have many other ones, they don't like keeping track of their receipts. So really keep track, and you're going to have to do this. Otherwise, you might wind up getting it in a period that you really don't qualify. So more about income. Now, we made a little mistake on this one, so well, I'll show you something here. Income that's not included in 5,000. You're going to say, okay, I got a student loan. What?
You didn't send them the one that we changed.
Yeah.
That's why is it saying if you were applying for the first
Oh no. Oh, David. That's okay. I think we'll have a few changes here. I think we've got the wrong. Yeah, but that's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
We'll explain it. Thank you for noticing that. Yes. That's great. So income that's not included in the 5,000 is pensions, student loans, and student grants. This is not artist project grants. Student grants are not taxable income, so they're not included in the 5,000 amount. If you're a student and you get a T2202 from the university or college you're going to, if you got a student grant, it becomes totally non-taxable. So there's a big difference between artists and students. So pensions, student loans, student grants, bursaries are not considered employment income, and they don't form part of that 5,000. Funding, if somebody's got a disability payment, that's not part of the 5,000. Severance pay, which is not part of the 5,000. And this one, it says royalty payments, that's supposed to be down at the bottom. So we're going to ignore that one right there, and we're going to explain a little bit more. Now, if you're applying for the first time, the government has this rule that I haven't quite figured this one out either. I think that's why we took it up. That if you don't earn over $1,000 in net self-employment and net self-employment income for the first 14 consecutive days in the 4-week period, that is really difficult. As soon as you hit the first $1,000, you don't qualify. So that they worded that one very strange. So we kind of took it out, and we wanted to go with when you're applying, right? When you're applying for a 4-week period, you don't expect to go over $1,000 in gross employment income. So your gross employment income is the employment income before Canada pension, EI, and tax. It's that first amount, not the amount that actually goes into your bank account, which is usually quite a bit less. Net is self-employed income, so that's your gross minus your expenses. How are you going to know that? Keep track, keep track. That's all I can say. We've got to keep track. This is so important. And you're not going to be able to go to your accountant every week and ask them to do it, because that gets a little expensive. We do it for you sometime during the year or at the end of the year, but you're going to have to do this yourself. I have a great spreadsheet. If anybody is interested in my spreadsheet for artists, self-employed people, please contact me, and I'll definitely send it to you. No cost or anything. It'll really help you keep track. And you expect to continue not earning $1,000 for 4 weeks. So they're trusting that you're going to be honest about it. And here's the thing, this royalty payments, it should be moved down at the bottom here. It says royalty payments from work that took place before the period for which a person applied to CERB does not form part of the $1,000, okay? So it shouldn't be up by the 5,000. It's not part of the 1,000, right. Because let's say you've made a CD back in, or a video, or a, whatever, a short, Canadian short or something like that, and you made it back in August, and then you start getting royalties in May for that work. That does not throw you over the $1,000 limit, because it's for work that was done prior to the CERB period. So here's another one just to get people thinking a bit. Everybody that is self-employed should be on the accrual basis accounting. What does accrual mean? Expenses are deducted at the time they are incurred, not the time they're paid. And income is considered income when it's earned or receivable, not when it's actually paid to you. So here's another example. You apply for a grant in August, and all of a sudden, Factor gets back to you in November and says, hey, guess what? You're approved. We're going to send you that 10 grand for your touring, a touring grant or something. But they take a while, and they don't pay you till May, and you're on CERB. Well, guess what? That income was actually income in November if you're doing a proper accounting, which is going to, tell your accountant to keep the paperwork, keep when you applied for a grant, keep when you were accepted for the grant, and keep when you were paid for it, and let the accountant figure that out for you. But that's really important, and a lot of people are in that situation. So you have to keep that in mind. And do we have any? No. Oh, yeah. Oh, what's David say there? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Oh my God.
Will this be included in the docs after the webinar?
Yeah, I think he's got it down here, right?
Yes. We will be able to offer it to everyone who emailed David Cheoros for access to this workshop. So if you do work for a client in May and you invoice them and they don't pay you for a month, you count it when you invoice?
Yes.
Yes.
That's the accrual basis of accounting. I invoiced. That means the service is done. You owe me the money. And that can happen sometimes. Somebody doesn't pay you for 6 months, right?
Yeah.
But it is your income on the accrual basis of accounting when you invoice or when it becomes receivable. Like with the grant, they go, yes, you get it. That is the date that is actually your income, not when you actually get paid.
So the day you invoice.
The invoice. So the service is provided, you invoice, or your grant is accepted and you've been notified.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Good questions. Thank you. Oh, do we have another one? Oh, sorry.
What about an honorarium paid to the artist because of a canceled gig? Does that count towards the $1,000?
Yes.
Yes.
It isn't an honorarium. Oh, that's a good question. Just wait. Not included.
I didn't think it was.
It's included in the 5,000. Honoraria, it would be considered included in the 5,000.
But not
in the 1,000.
And in the 1,000?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll double check that for you, okay, Garth? I'm quite sure it would.
I'm just
Megan's going to do some research here right away.
Yeah, I think it would count, Janice. I think it would count towards the 1,000, that honorarium.
Yes, I think so too, because it counts for part of the 5,000. So, they kind of both go hand in hand, right? Yeah. Okay. And
especially if it was a gig and you were paid for it, even if you didn't do the gig. Like if the gig was canceled, but they still paid you an honorarium for the gig, it's still income that you earned. So.
Okay.
Sorry, does the GST count towards
this one first?
Oh, sorry. To clarify, the date of notification of a successful grant is the date the income will count towards a CERB period. For example, if a person applies for a grant in April is notified they are successful in June, but payment is not made to the artist until July, would fall under the June CERB period.
It's the date you were notified that you're successful.
So it would be June, yeah,
it would
correct.
Be June, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
One charges GST. Does the GST count towards 1,000? Oh.
So
that's another really good question. Boy, I'm so happy you guys are giving those to us because there's so much we're learning too. And the CRA site doesn't say anything. With this, I'm going to wrap my head around that one. Because you're reporting GST separately, it is GSTable and it's a tax. I wouldn't think the GST would qualify. We're going to find out for you though.
Because it's not your money.
Yeah, that's right. It's not your money, it's the government.
Yeah.
Good one. I like that. Yeah, because you're collecting it on behalf of the government. So GST is never your money. So they can't call it your income because you're reporting a separate GST return with your separate ITCs, your expenses, and then you pay them the net.
You're just holding.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you're the conduit,
Yeah.
so to speak. Okay, and what's the other one?
He's just clarifying that no, the GST wouldn't be. Said no,
That's it.
can't trade a tax.
Well, thank you. Who's KK here? This is awesome. You should be joining in quite often here. Okay, that one should have come off the top of my head, but it, you know, it didn't today. So anyway, we need to go to. Okay, should we go to the next screen or are we?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And I know that's a hard one to explain to people. It's not your money, especially when they like to use it like it is their money.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we've got the Canada Emergency Student Benefit. Okay, you have to be careful here. You cannot get the CERB if you've already applied. I mean, you can't get the CESB if you've already applied for the CERB or EI. And be very careful about this, because if you get too many, you know, amounts going, these benefits going, you're going to wind up paying them back, and that hurts more than not getting them in the first place. So these criteria are right on the CRA site with the application that takes in graduation date into effect. It's really good. I went on there. I thought it was very well done. But basically, if you're enrolled in a post-secondary program for at least 12 weeks, that leads to a degree, diploma, or certificate, you have completed or ended your post-secondary studies, you have completed or expect to complete high school or received or expect to receive high school equivalency. Do you think we can turn on our light? Can you guys let us know what happens when we turn our light on?
Sorry,
Oh,
but
sorry.
I just have one more question here about the $1,000. So
Yeah.
he's saying if you get a grant to produce or make a CD, does that count towards the 1,000? I assume if you spend the grant money immediately, then it becomes an expense, so it doesn't count.
Well, that's what you're keeping track of.
Correct.
Your
Yeah,
gross
exactly.
income and your expenses. It's that first one right there. There. Does that mess it up? But we're having a hard time seeing. No.
Could you please go over the 5,000 before taxes? Is it 5,000 gross business or it is? Okay, wait. Could you please repeat if you have answered this question?
What's okay? We can repeat it.
Yes.
It's gross employment earnings. So that's before your Canada pension, EI, and tax. And
self-employment is net.
And self-employment's net. This is why it's so important. When you get that grant of $1,000, which we just asked here, and you spent $1,200 making whatever you needed, you don't have $1,000 during that period.
But you have to keep those.
You have to keep it. You're gonna now we're gonna talk about that later. Having experience with CRA, I'm questioning how much auditing they're going to be doing, but let's for now always think that they're going to. And then you have all your correct paperwork. Okay. If you completed high school, you get usually less of a time period for the Canada Emergency Student Benefit, because it all depends when you graduated as to what your qualifying period is. The CRA site's really good on this, and then you still have to qualify by you're not able to work, you're looking for work but can't find it, you're currently working but your income from employment or self-employment is less than 1,000. That's net self-employment again. And there's the qualifying periods go from May 10th to August 29th. The student will get $1,250 a month or $2,000 if that student has dependents or is disabled. Okay. Oh, is there anything else there? Okay.
No, that's
okay.
Okay.
So that's more to go on the site and see if you qualify if you're a student, right?
Yeah.
Oh, and we did quote the Honorable Justin Trudeau in this one. The Canada Student Service Grant, the CSSG, is not taxable. And I think I missed something on the previous screen that the CESB is taxable. Okay, very important to notice there's a difference between the two. Now, if you were on the Canada Emergency Service Benefit, the CESB, you can also get the Canada Student Service Grant. And it was set up so it encourages young people to take part in service activities, will help them support their community's COVID-19 response and gain invaluable experience. And we always want people to volunteer, and this is another way to get students out there volunteering but making some money too. Because usually when you volunteer, you're not going to get paid. It ranges from 1,000 to 5,000. It's based on every 100 hours. So if you worked 150 hours, you can't just say, okay, I'll take 1,500. No, you get your $1,000. Then you have to work another 100 hours to get your other $1,000. So that's very important there. And participants may be 30 years of age or younger, Canadian citizen, permanent residents, First Nations, Métis or Inuit, or student with refugee status, and enrolled in and attending a post-secondary education during the spring, summer, fall of 2020, recent post-secondary graduates after December 2019, and studying abroad but currently residing in Canada. Now, these applications are on the CRA site. I went to this one too, but it's actually on not the CRA. It's on the www.jobbank.gc.ca that we have at the bottom here. However, if anybody's heard of We Charity, this whole thing is on hold right now, which is really sad because they've had a lot of applications and they were ready to go. So it might look like it's going to be the EI Canada Student Summer Program that's going to be administering this, but at the time, we don't know. So that's really too bad, but these two could have gone hand in hand, but you can't get to CERB with either one of the Canada Student loans or grants, or benefits or grants, sorry. Okay, how are we doing for questions then?
Same, yeah.
Okay. So, and thank you, KK, for chiming in there, because I'll tell you, it's really nice to have somebody catch the answer right away. Yeah, this is our first time doing this. It's not like some of my other seminars I've done so many times that you barely ever get one that stumps you, but I usually find somebody's got a question that's a little bit, you got to put your thinking cap on for sure.
You are so welcome.
Okay, great. Okay, let's talk about return or repayment. I had a lady call me today about this, so it's kind of interesting. If you received CERB from the CRA, this meant, sorry, you pay it back to the CRA. If you received it from Service Canada, you pay it back to Service Canada. Both of these sites have repayment information right on their site. So you'll be fine. It'll guide you through it. And there's always the phone numbers you can phone. Now, this lady I talked to today had phoned quite a few times about a problem with the repayment. She got through, as long as you're going on the CERB phone lines, not the general inquiries, right? So your situation may have changed when you applied to make sure the CERB is only kept by people who are eligible. You must repay the $2,000 in full if you no longer are eligible for that 4-week period. However, here's the recommendation. If you find out you goofed, don't pay it back yet. When you do that, there's something in their system that they're trying to correct that makes you ineligible for the next 4-week period. So you have to phone them up and go, what is going on here? How come I'm ineligible now? I just goofed, let's say, the first eligible, the March 15th one, and now we're into July 5th to August 1st, right? So they're saying right now, just hang on to it, get ready. You can pay it through my account, you can mail it in. There's numerous ways through your financial institution too, but just wait. Put it in a savings account till you start seeing what's on the CRA site that's saying, okay, you can do this now, you can give it back. Some people already have, but I have one today that I told her, just wait, you're going to mess up all the rest of your periods. And she is definitely not going to be employed till the next, probably the end of it. But she probably just go to August 29th because she signed up at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, the next one here, this is going to be a little more confusing. Do we have any questions?
He just said Dave said thank you for sharing this information.
Okay, we got just a couple more and then we'll open it up to questions. How are we doing for time here? I don't even know what time it is.
It's blocked as well. I can't see.
Oh, 11. Oh, we're doing really good. Okay. So we have more chat time here. Impact on your taxes. Okay, as you know, the CERB is taxable. The Canada Emergency Student Benefit is taxable. You will receive a T4A slip. A lot of people have already seen those slips. It's just reporting other types of income. The grants you get from the Edmonton Arts Council are on a T4A slip. However, if you pay the CERB, they're not going to give you a slip that says you paid it back. Like put it on a T4A slip and put a minus, right? And supposedly they're going to reduce the amount you paid by the amount you paid back. I have a big question about that one, because I did see somewhere else that they said, they may actually have a place on the tax return that you put what you paid back as a deduction, which a lot of people may not remember, and you really need to keep your payment slips. Like, as soon as you pay online, print that off. It's so important to prove you paid it and where you paid it to. My guess, working for CRA, is that the payments to you will be tied directly to the T4A slip. So boom, you'll get the 12,000 total, even if you paid back 2. So you're going to have to, I'm sure they're going to have some line on the tax return somewhere that says amounts paid back to CERB. We just haven't seen it yet. They haven't completed the 2020 software for it yet,
it's not yet.
or updated it. And if you're having problems going, okay, we want to talk about how much tax I'm going to owe. Now I'm going to have a hard time saying this because I'm a difficult word, but if you if you need to calculate how much you're going to owe, like possibly what income you're going to make in total, check what that is, and then check how much the CERB would make a difference. You can go to taxtips.ca or any other or any other reputable site. There's a lot of sites up there that you can do a basic tax calculation. And the reason we can't do too many examples, we do some on the next page, is that there's so many variables when you're doing your taxes. There's dependents, there's medical expenses, there's other income you're making, there's
Or any other deduction.
any other deductions. So we had to do something really, really basic, okay? So this one's kind of fun. Okay, here's the impact on your taxes. Okay, if you made, this is the wrong screen.
Oh, okay. It's supposed to be 12,000 because that's the maximum that you can make of CERB. We corrected it, but
whoops, there's a goof.
Yes.
Sorry, Dave, we sent you too many PowerPoints because you made too many corrections. Okay. We're going to have to put, if you made 12,000 of CERB, because that is the maximum you can make, okay?
These numbers are going to be wrong.
I know.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's any other way we put the other no, it's take too long. Okay, we're just going to have to explain this. If you made $12,000 of CERB, no other income, no deductions, okay? Your federal tax is going to be 0, your Canada pension will be 0, and your provincial will be 0. That means you owe nothing. If that's all you made throughout the whole year is the CERB, you're going to have no tax. So don't worry about it. Not 24,000, 12,000. We were doing this.
It was 24 months, and then we kind of
24 weeks.
24 weeks, yes.
And we were doing this late in the day, and we're going, oh my God, this is our last slide. So we did change it, but for Dave, we sent him a couple of different ones, and I do apologize, Dave, for that. So the next one is if you've got 12,000 of CERB and 20,000 net income. So instead, we'll be going down to this one down here, but it's going to be 12,000 CERB, 20,000 net self-employed income, meaning your gross income minus your expenses that you kept very good track of, so you know what they are, and no other deductions. We just couldn't do it, right? That's going to be in total $5,515. That's made up of federal of $2,737, Canada pension of $1,683, and provincial of $1,094. I know it's hard reading this off. Just think, if you got 12,000 of CERB, you had 20,000 net self-employed income, your total tax payable is $5,515. And why is that? Is that the 20,000 is Canada, it's pensionable.
There's questions.
Oh, the CERB isn't.
Sandra says, can you speak to what lost income means, as a lot of artists work without income for months, but then when work is finished or shown, then income is received.
Okay, I'll get right to that one, Sandra. I'm just going to finish this one.
Of lost income.
Okay.
And sorry to interrupt, Janice. I have your new version if I can share my screen if you want.
Yeah, okay, so we switch over to your screen just for this last one. It's just fine.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, how do we do that? Okay, and then we'll answer your questions, Sandra.
Yeah, working on it.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It was us. It wasn't even him. Because we're the ones that put that up.
Can you see mine? Oh.
It wasn't you.
I'm so sorry.
We put up the wrong one. Oh my God, you were blaming on someone else. Let's deflect that. Oh my God, we took the wrong one and put it up, and so it wasn't. Sorry, Dave. Apologies 1,000%.
So sorry.
So do you want to share yours again?
Yeah, please. Just that last one.
Okay, I'll stop sharing again.
No.
No.
You have it. Yes,
Oh.
let's keep yours on. That's
Okay,
perfect.
Okay.
Oh.
Leave it. No, I got
Yes,
it. It's here.
sorry.
It's still here.
Okay, here is for everybody. Let's go back to this tax thing. If you only got $12,000 to CERB, no other income, you're single, you don't have any dependents, all those things that make a difference, right? You would have no tax. You have no tax implications whatsoever. If you made $12,000 of CERB and you had net self-employed income, you would pay in total $5,515. And what that means is there's federal $2,737. This provincial, by the way, is Alberta, not BC, because you'd be paying more there.
Yeah.
Canada pension of $1,683 and provincial of $1,094. Soon as you make net self-employed or employment earnings, there is Canada pension tied to that. Those are considered pensionable earnings. As you notice in the one above, if you got CERB all by itself, there's no Canada pension because it's not pensionable earnings from what we know so far. And then at the bottom, if you made no CERB and you're single and you had 20,000 net self-employed income, you would have federal tax of $937. Canada pension is exactly the same, $1,683. Provincial $0. So you would owe $2,620.20. So let's say you had no CERB because it didn't exist. You'd owe $2,620. And in the same position, but if you got 12,000 of CERB, you'd owe $5,515. And thank you, Derek, for putting that up.
Yes.
I can't believe we did that. I'm sorry, people, and then we blame it on David. Sorry, David. I owe you a coffee or lunch or something for that one. Okay, now let's go back to Sandra's question here. Okay, because we're actually done with the presentation. So should we go back to who's talking now?
Yeah, she's right here.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, KK said you guys are hilarious. Accountants, artists want you, except we cannot understand you.
Why is that? Because I just got my dental work done.
No, I think it's just because maybe I screw up. Can you just confirm, I'm not sure I understood you correctly, that the $1,000 you are allowed to be paid while on CERB is net income? Yes. For example, I could make $1,500 one period so long as I had $500 of work-related expenses with proof of receipts, I would be okay.
Yes. As long as you don't go over that 1,000, you've got it, and so you're right on there.
Yeah.
Now we have to go back. Sandra had two questions.
Yes. Sorry,
We have to scroll this one up a bit. Yeah.
Okay. Can you speak to what lost income means, as a lot of artists work without income for months, but then when work is finished or shown, then income is received?
Well, how you're paying tax is based on the income you really get or receivable minus your expenses. Lost income has nothing to do with tax. You just didn't get it. You're not going to pay tax on it, and you don't get any deduction for losing it. So if you had, oh, what was that?
A little puppy, I think.
Oh, I was thinking it was my puppies. And if you got no income from being an artist this year, you could still deduct any expenses you might have had to incur to try and make some income, and then you'd have a loss that it can be applied against other income on your tax return. So don't forget, if you have zero income, you could still have some artist expenses. I would like anybody who's interested to send me an email. You should put the email address up there, I guess. Requesting my spreadsheet. It will make your life so easy because you can see all the different categories of expenses that you need to be keeping track of. And it's a nice spreadsheet, so you can do it per week, per month, per year, however you want to do it.
Hi, can I just clarify? It's Sandra.
Yeah.
What I meant is eligibility for CERB, in that how a lot of artists don't know what income they're having this year, and it's not always dependable. So say last year I could have made $10,000 in the first 3 months or 4 months. This year, I didn't. Now, I did have a show that was postponed and a show that exhibition that was delayed. But for some, if I hadn't have had those delays, would I still be eligible? I just have a few friends that you know, haven't had anything canceled, and yet they know that the COVID has influenced or affected their income in the future, which would be, you know, the annual amount. Is that understandable?
With CERB, you don't have to show, like, let's say you lost 50% or 30% of your business, you don't have to show that. You just have to show that you made $5,000 and that you're not making more than 1,000. You don't have to show your loss. That's for, there are other benefits that do ask that though, but CERB is not one of them.
One of the
Okay, so overall, okay, so you don't have to prove that you've had gigs canceled or shows delayed or anything else?
No, not for CERB.
What that is for, more for, that Derek was very right. Like, let's say your business is eligible to apply for the Canada wage subsidy benefit, right? If you have applying for the wage subsidy benefit, you do have to prove that your income is down from last year. How do you prove that? Is by doing monthly bookkeeping to show you don't have that, and you could have and keep those canceled contracts as backup. This is what I was supposed to have. I think it's a really good backup for sure. I like that idea. But basically, you're showing what you did make and comparing it to a similar time period last year. Now, we might get into doing a seminar on the CEWS or the CEBA. There's a whole bunch of different ones that apply to businesses. A lot of small self-employed people don't qualify for those because they're not paying salary out, and you have to pay salary and or dividends. So that means somebody.
Okay, but on CERB, you're not matching month for month income.
No.
You're just really saying last year you've earned at least 5,000, and you are saying you're sort of stating that you've lost income because of COVID, right?
Well, you're just saying that you did not make more than $1,000. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's all you're having to do when it's a CERB.
Yeah.
Other programs are different, and you really need to keep all that information to show what you did lose. There's no doubt about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
some of that information is connected to grants. Like some of the grants out there are going to ask the gigs that you lost and the things that you were supposed to have and you don't have now to get you eligible to grant. So that was just sort of a general rule. Maybe down the line it'll help with CRA. I don't know, but it's a good thing to kind of just know what you actually lost.
I think it's a good idea for even CRA. So that's another thing I want to talk about. First of all, Megan's going to put on here my email address for anybody who's interested in our spreadsheet for self-employed people.
Is it JRich Services?
No, JRich at shaw.ca.
Oh, it is just JRich.
Nice and simple. I'm very creative with my name. It's all JRich.
Yep, there it is.
Okay. So another thing I want to tell you, people are going, am I going to get audited? Well, and are there going to be fines? The latest fines that they suggested have not gone through Parliament, and they're very difficult because they keep changing things. I'm not even sure how they're going to be able to apply some of this. The whole idea is be as honest as you can be. Take it only if you need it. Know as much as you can about the eligibility. You and I, our kids, our grandchildren, and who knows what are going to be paying for this. So if you don't need it, don't get it, is my thing. What are the chances you're going to be audited? We have no idea. CRA likes to do things without us knowing, but my guess is they're just going to go after the very fraudulent ones, the easy ones, because it's going to cost a fortune to implement this system, and they're just taxing you on it. So it might be easier just to tax you on what you got. Now I got the sun in my eyes. Just hang on a second. The sun is switching on us here. It got really dark, and now it's got really light. So there we go. So here's the thing: is you want to keep all this information, very, very important, because they're telling you have to keep it. But we don't know in the long run who's going to be audited. I'd say that more the government, the business ones, the CEBA, the CEWS, the source deductions subsidy, because they're big ones. And I've known people who applied for the CEBA, which is that $40,000 loan that didn't qualify, and they're no longer my clients because I don't want to try and have to represent that dishonesty. It's just like, no way, I'm not doing that. Okay, so yeah, just keep everything. We don't know what the government's up to. That's all we're gonna say.
If I made money in the first grant period when they told us not to make any, will I owe money back? Again, it all depends if you made over $1,000. If you made over 1,000, then yes, you will have to pay that.
But if you didn't make over 1,000, you won't have to.
Yeah.
So hopefully, Tracy, you didn't make over 1,000. But yeah, they're still for that first period allowing you to have $1,000. Yes. Okay, we are open for questions. Do we have any more questions?
I did not, thank you.
Okay, I mean, that's good and bad. You would have liked to have earned more than 1,000. This is really tough times for everybody, like Derek has said too. It's very, very difficult times. So I can still see Derek up there. Which view do we have it on, or who's talking? I don't know what's going on.
I just jumped for the questions, Janice,
Yes.
in case I got them too.
One more question here. Do I report a grant received in June to CERB?
How much did you receive?
And a grant, what kind of grant?
What
An
kind of,
artist grant?
yeah, is it an artist grant? As if it's a student grant.
5,000.
Oh, nice grant. Yes, you wouldn't
Yes, an
qualify.
artist grant.
Yeah, you wouldn't qualify for this, the CERB that month then, because it was a $5,000 grant. Unless we have to qualify that answer, unless you spent $5,000 or four. You could have, if you spent 4,000, because the grant is for a purpose. So if you spent 4,000 of that grant towards that purpose, you're still at $1,000 because it's net.
So yeah, it all depends on your expenses.
Yeah.
Yeah, the portion of it that you pay yourself in income would be the part for the 1,000.
I don't think
Right?
you're not a self-employed. You can't pay yourself a salary.
Yeah, not as a salary, but if it's the 5,000 and you have 4,000 of expenses, right? So it's
Yes,
the income that you take in from the grant as an artist.
Yeah.
Janice, it's
also-
David here. May I cut in briefly?
Sure.
There's just one more question. Can we just ask this one? Okay. Elsa said, I have deferred payment of the grant. How does that work?
Well, by what we've been telling you, if you knew you were getting it, should have been income at the time, but I do understand the Edmonton Arts Council has given people the ability to receive it at a later date. So my thing is that then was it receivable at that time or not? That's another tough one, David. Remember we had talked about that.
Sorry, Melissa, or did you just say artists are not self-employed when they receive a grant? No, we never said that. Definitely are self-employed. Thank you for your time, Mrs. Reed.
Thanks. Now, David, please go ahead.
So to clarify, this applies specifically to the Creators Reserve grants. This is why we gave you the option to either take a $5,000 lump sum, which would, unless you had significant expenses in that same period, render you ineligible for CERB within that period. Or you could have requested $5,000 checks, which you can cash as is appropriate for your specific needs, and then claim that income in periods as is appropriate for you. Elsa, our understanding is that if you defer payment, then you can consider the grant as income in the period when you then allow the grant to be paid, although I understand that Janis has a completely reasonable other interpretation.
However, I think this is a tough one, David. There is no doubt. I think we need a little bit more clarification on that, because the way you had set it up, when I first looked at it too, I thought, well, deferred means they're not eligible for that grant right now. So really, when you think about it, it could be argued either way. It really could. So I'd let your people defer it if they need to defer it, and we will definitely look into more information on that.
Would it be when they earn it? Like if they had 5,000 for their grant, but the grant was to do a project a month for 5 months. So each month they have to do one thing, and they're earning 1,000 of it each month. Would that is that what you're referring to, David, in some ways? That they,
yeah. Because the Creators Reserve grants are effectively for self-directed work, our assumption is that you are doing the work when we are paying you to do the work, not necessarily when we told you that we were going to pay you to do the work.
Yeah, and see, this is going to make, because if it's deferred, then it's really not receivable. I think that's the key right there. As soon as you say to someone it's deferred, it doesn't become a receivable at that time because they are not entitled to it. I think we'd have a good argument for it, yes. I think we could come up with something very good.
So I'm afraid we're past 8:30 now, and certainly if you want to continue and pursue further questions, I'm going to suggest that you connect directly with Janis or Derek. But if you don't mind, I'm going to turn it back over to David van Belle for some final thoughts.
Just wanted to say thank you very much for all of you for attending today, and thank you to our presenters as well for the valuable information that you've provided. There is, just speaking on behalf of Theatre Alberta, there is more COVID resources on our webpage, theatrealberta.com, as well as a whole listing of online performances and that sort of thing as well. So when you're done talking about taxes and you want to kick your feet back, you can go there to find something else to watch tonight that's in the performing arts.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you especially to Derek and Janis and Megan for their assistance this evening in helping to navigate a fairly torturous subject. The EAC is preparing to do a series of free workshops on a variety of topics relating to the business of being an independent artist. We're hoping to start those up in September. So stay tuned for those. And again, we will get a copy of Janis's spreadsheet with her permission, and then get it out to everyone as soon as possible over the next couple days. Thank you all so much, and we will look forward to seeing you or seeing you virtually in the days and months ahead. Thanks very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Derek. Oh, we're just having someone asking a quick last question, if that's okay. Yeah, put the phone number. Yes, and if anybody wants to call for a quick clarification on anything in this, please feel free to. I'm not during filing season. I can take more calls. This is filing season. I go, no.
Yeah, I can stay on for a couple of minutes if they need. I know you need to go. If you need to go off, David, and close it. But
thank you so much.
Okay, that was great, Janis.
Oh, thanks so much, Ron.
Okay.
Thanks, Ron.
Yeah,
we'll
take care. Yeah, and how's it going, David?
Well, it's going good. Nice to see you on the call, Ron. It's always good when your own tax accountant is on the call too.
That's awesome.
Well, there's no such thing as too much information.
Absolutely.
Okay, take care.
Bye-bye.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Ron. Ron's a wealth of information. It's awesome. Okay, did we have any other questions? Thank you for joining us. Sorry I had to read from the paper a whole lot because I was way over here.
I don't think we have any others, and I'm going to assume that everyone who is still on is on in spirit, but not necessarily at their computer.
They're in the bathroom.
Exactly. So I'm gonna say thank you again, and I'm gonna wrap up this meeting. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you
Thank
so
you so much. Yeah.
That's fine.
Bye all.
Goodbye.
Bye. Do you want to sign